Welcome everybody to another edition of the C&J Speedway Review. My name is Chris Burns, as you can see right there. New toys for us. I am from the Loki and Jabroni Show. We live stream every Tuesday night now, little switch in the plan, and we go hot in your ears audio only every Wednesday night. Staring across the screen at me like he wants one of the burgers I grilled up earlier is my partner in crime, Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how's it going today?
I'm doing pretty well, and we already got out of the round of 16, and now I'm already interested to see how the round of 12 is going to be this Sunday. And not only that, it's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to play out in these this next three races in this round. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, there's going to be a whole lot to talk about coming out of Dover this weekend in the Cup Series, and I know you watched the truck race. I caught the Xfinity race myself and the Cup race. Lots to talk about. But before we go any further, we do have to tip our cap and have a little bit of solemn moment. One of the most esteemed engine builders and car owners in the NASCAR circuit passed away this weekend. Robert Yates has left the building, unfortunately. And I was a big fan of Robert Yates. Never was a part of the RYR fan team, if you will. Didn't root for a lot of his drivers, but he always hired classy guys, and you were never mad if a Yates guy won.
Yeah, I mean, put it in perspective, Robert Yates was one of those guys that knew how to build a really good engine. And not only that, he would have his cars, on the front row at Daytona and Talladega every single year. And then pretty much everybody would all question saying like, okay, which Robert Yates car is going to be on the pole? So that was one thing that Robert Yates pretty much did, that some of these other guys couldn't do like back then, because, Robert knew how to build a really good engine. And actually what was kind of cool was that, he would go up to like anybody who would drive a race car, and a lot of them would ask Robert saying like, hey, how do you build a really good race car? He would tell you all to do, like to do this, do that, whatsoever, and then they could make it go fast and and pretty much go straight on the straightaways without even turning. But other than that, Robert, worked with a lot of great race car drivers throughout the years. Like from Waltrip to Jarrett to Sadler, everybody that was around, including the great Davey Allison as well.
And I just remember Robert Yates' biggest success story being, of course, Dale Jarrett. Yeah. And one of the things that I always loved about Dale Jarrett was he was humble. And I think that speaks volumes to how Robert Yates hired his drivers. Right. He wanted someone that was humble. He wanted someone that was driven. And at the end of the day, he wanted someone that knew how to turn that race car as fast as he could.
Exactly.
So I tip my cat. It's such a loss. Really, it is. I don't know what else to say about that, but as we go forward, to review the week that was, we can start with the Camping World Truck Series, which you watched the entire race.
Yep.
However, before we get started, I want to show my card from last week. There it is. I picked number 1 and number 2. So I'm pretty high on myself right now, but that's nothing new. I'm high on myself every week.
Yeah, I mean, the truck race was it was pretty exciting on Saturday night, and honestly, all I can just tell you is from Ben Rhodes, to making the playoffs, on a tiebreaker, I said to myself, okay, now I do expect him to go maybe towards the round of 6 or so and all that, but I just don't think he would go to the Final Four in my prediction. But after what I saw on Saturday night, I said to myself, this kid's on to something. If he could do really well in the round of 6, I think he's got a really good shot at beating Christopher Bell. Now, do I think he's got a shot at winning the championship? I'm not really sure. But all I could just say is let's just see how he does like in the round of 6, and we'll see how it goes from there. But how he held off Bell on Saturday night, I just have no idea whatsoever. But I think the kid did a really good job.
Absolutely. And again, looking at the highlights that I saw to close that race out and basically put himself on the map. I am here. I am going to be a force to be reckoned with. And to beat Christopher Bell, who has been, let's be honest, he's been the Martin Truex of the truck circuit.
Yeah.
It made a statement for Ben Rhodes. And of course, Christopher Bell being right up front as usual. I'm starting to see the truck series much like I'm looking at the Cup Series, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but it's come down to a one-car race. It really has come down to Christopher Bell, and if anybody wants to dethrone Bell, they're going to have to work for it really, really hard. And I think Ben Rhodes definitely made a huge statement this weekend by pulling off the victory.
I think so too. And now that the guys are going to be going to Talladega in 2 weeks, I tell you what, the race is pretty much going to be between from second, third, all the way to like that last spot in the eighth position. And quite honestly, positions are going to change like every single lap. Points are going to go all over the place. And honestly, like quite frankly, I mean, it's going to decide who's going to get those last couple spots, and it's going to determine like who's going to be the two drivers that are out. And one driver that I was actually kind of surprised, but I'm kind of like disappointed of how he's running is Johnny Sauter. And I was watching that race on Saturday night, and he got caught up in that wreck on the restart or so forth. And then pretty much, he salvaged to get a top 10 finish, but the last two races I saw, they're finishing in the top 10, but the only thing is like they've been getting into crashes the last two races. And I've actually noticed to myself, I said, okay, like if this team is going to want to win the championship and if they're going to go back to the Final Four, they can't keep doing this. They can't keep getting in the wrecks, that are not in their own doing. And they got to start running better, and they got to start getting to the front, and they got to lead laps and win races. And I really think this 21 team, if they want to win a race, they got to win probably this weekend at Talladega, if they want to get to that next round. Because like I said, it's so unpredictable. You can't tell what's going to happen in 2 weeks. But I really think that 21 team, they really need to get a move on.
Absolutely. However, I mean, I'm really looking at this, and I just went back to the points, and now my computer's giving me crap. First it was my phone, now it's the computer. To see that, oh, here we go again. Once again, the computer's being all butt happy on me. Rhodes is only, again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm doing my math here. 47 points out?
Yeah.
All it takes, again, is one bad run for Bell, and Rhodes can sneak in. It's a three-truck run. You got Christopher Bell in first, Ben Rhodes in second, Matt Crafton is third. All of them are separated by 51 points. Past that, like you said, Johnny Sauter with the fourth place, he's really not going to go anywhere.
I don't think so.
And he has been running kind of bad.
Yeah.
So, obviously, in both our opinions, it sounds like there's no room for Johnny Sauter.
But if you look at it, this team has been pretty consistent, throughout the whole regular season. I mean, they were finishing in the top 5, top 10, like pretty much the first couple races of the season. They already got the one win at Dover. So I thought, okay, finishing in the top 10 is something, but then when it comes to playoff time, it's a different battlefield. It's a whole new ball game because now you have to win a race in order to advance. And I'm looking at Sauter in the points right now. I mean, he's only a few points to the good. I mean, ahead of 8th place and 7th place and so forth. So I would say that if he has a good run on 2 weeks at Talladega, I think he's got a good shot at making the round of 6. And hopefully the next round he can get to the Final Four, because there's some really good racetracks for him that are coming up. I mean, if you look at it, you got Martinsville, which he's won there before, and he's a really good short track racer. You got Texas, which he's won there before. Then Phoenix, he's done pretty much good there in the past. So I really think this 21 team, I'm looking at their standings, 9 top 5s and 15 top 10s. It's good, but they just have to start running better.
Oh, absolutely. And just in looking at, we'll break down real quick the field of 8 that's gone on right now. Obviously, Bell is in first, Ben Rhodes in second, Matt Crafton third, Johnny Sauter fourth, Chase Briscoe, who had a great run, is in fifth, Austin Cindric sixth, Kaz Grala seventh, and John Hunter Nemechek eighth. Looking at the bottom 4, 68 points back is Briscoe, 70 points back is Cindric.
Yep.
Grala is 78 points back. John Hunter Nemechek is 84 points back. I'm really looking at there has to be some sort of shakeup, and I know we've mentioned it before, for Christopher Bell to be knocked out of basically what is the catbird seat. Most people are going to look at this and go, he's already wrapped this title up.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the next round, and if you think about it, there's tracks that, that are going to play in favor of Christopher Bell. Because if you look at it, Martinsville, he did pretty well in the spring. Texas, he won back in June. In Phoenix, he had a top 5 finish there. So I could see Bell winning at either Martinsville or Texas to advance to the Final Four. And like I said, I have him going to the Championship 4 in November. And pretty much he's just the only truck to beat, for this championship as of right now. And the only way that the other 7 or 6 drivers are going to want to win this championship is they're going to have to go through the 14.
Okay. So we've broken that down. I just realized that we were both kind of wrong. They're off this weekend before they go to Talladega.
Yeah.
That race is on the 14th, I believe it said. I'm
Correct.
Trying to restart the phone here, which is where I get all my standings and driver information. Da-da-da-da. Yep, Saturday, October 14th at 1 o'clock is the Camping World Truck Series race at Talladega. So they have a week off.
Yep.
Let's move on to the Xfinity Series. We both watched the race. We both had a good time with it. And to nobody's surprise, Ryan Blaney really did a great job handling everything that was thrown at him, from Justin Allgaier to William Byron. He didn't quite walk away with the race. Wasn't without challenge.
No, I think Blaney, he did a really good job on Saturday. And I got to tell you what, that 22 team pretty much dominated the whole race. I'd probably say it wasn't until maybe before the end of stage 2, was when the 22 team was on their feet. And yeah, it was good for Ryan Blaney for him to win. And, not only he's in the playoffs in the Cup side, but, second win of the season for him. And I'm looking at the results, the junior motorsports guys were not too far behind. And, I thought, William Byron was going to run away with the win. And, he was pretty much dominant, I'd say, in the first 90 laps. And the good thing is he finished 3rd. And then you got Justin Allgaier finishing 2nd. And like I said, again, I really think this Xfinity Championship, it's going to come down, between all of the junior motorsports guys. Now, I don't see Annette moving on to the next round, but I would probably say after the round of 12, and then you go to the round of 8, I think it's going to come down between Sadler, Allgaier, and Byron.
That's quite possible.
Yeah.
Now, see, I saw it differently, and I'm trying to bring the playoff standings up real quick. Again, big computer issues. NASCAR.com does not want to play with Chris today. Don't know why. I'm in the Xfinity Series, and I'm looking at the playoff standing, and it says Martin Truex Jr. Here we go. So you were saying Allgaier, Byron, Sadler.
Yeah.
This is going to be a three-headed race. You don't think, and just looking at Cole Custer this weekend having a good run, coming in 8th place, that Custer could give something to these top 3?
I think Custer, could have a really good shot. I mean, he ran pretty well at Kentucky last week. And, and not only the fact that he's a rookie as well, but I still think that, he has probably maybe a 50% shot at making the Final Four. Do I think he wins the championship? I don't think so. But I would have to say that if the 00 can pull off some really good runs, through the next couple of races, I think, they can get a win. Now, I don't think, they have a shot at winning the championship, but I think they can get maybe one win before the season's out. And I'm looking at their points right now, 5 top 5s and 15 top 10s. I mean, it's pretty good for him. And, and he has an average finish about 14.4, so which is not too bad. And right now he's only 14th, and he's only a couple points to the good ahead of 12th place. So he's in pretty good position. So if he has a good finish on Saturday at Charlotte, I think he's got a good shot at making the round of 8.
Oh, absolutely. One of the guys I was looking at last week who surprised me with a 5th place finish, even though he's in the playoffs, was Brennan Poole. It seemed like he wasn't having the best race ever, and he hung on to a top 10 finish. Your thoughts?
My thoughts on Brendan Poole, back-to-back top 5s. I really think this team has something going on right now. I mean, ever since the playoffs started, he finished 2nd at Kentucky and top 5 at Dover. So I think this team, could be a one to watch this weekend at Charlotte. I mean, if they can have some really good runs between now and then to the end of the round of round of 8 at Phoenix, I really think this team could go the Final Four at Homestead. I don't know if they can win the championship, but if you look at the points for Brendan Poole, he's only 3 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and an average finish of 13.5. So it's not too bad, but I really think, this team, could get a move on, pretty much after the round of 12.
Right. So let's break down these 12. Jeremy Clements is in 12th, 72 points back. Blake Cook, 64 points back in 11th. Michael Annett, 59 points back in 10th. Brendan Gaughan, 54 points back in 9th. Ryan Reed comes in 8th, 52 points back. Matt Tifft, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, 40 points back in 7th. Brennan Poole, 6th, 25 points back. Daniel Hemrick, 17 points back in 5th. Cole Custer, 4th, 14 points back. Elliott Sadler, 3rd, 13 points back. William Byron, 3 points back in 2nd. Justin Allgaier is your leader. Now, when Justin Allgaier took that win last weekend, we all talked about it before the playoffs started, that we thought this was going to be Byron's championship walking away. Yeah. Now we're looking at a situation where Allgaier has taken the lead, and in this race he decided he's going to finish 2nd. No, he didn't decide. It's the way it was.
Right.
He's going to hold on to that lead a little longer.
I think so.
We're going to a track next week in Charlotte that you can think you have the world at your hands, and one small mistake is going to ruin everything for you. Yeah. Which one of those two? We don't want to see bad luck befall any of these two young guys, but who do you think has the most to lose at Charlotte, Allgaier or Byron?
I probably say the most one maybe would have to lose. I would have to say maybe Byron or so, because, given the fact that he's a rookie, but I still think, this kid, is pretty competitive every week. And, he's had a few races where, he hasn't been really good. I mean, if you look at his results back in May, he finished 14th. So it wasn't really too bad, but, that was when he was on his rookie year and so forth. But I mean, if you look at the points right now, I mean, I don't expect to see any changes between 1st and 8th or so. I would just have to say it's going to be the guys that are going to be between 10th and 12th.
Okay. So of the two below them, Sadler and Custer, who is going to give Byron and Allgaier a run for their money, and who's going to fall backward?
So out of the Xfinity regulars, I would have to say Sadler is going to give them a run for their money. I mean, he hasn't won a race yet this year, but I do expect this team to be in the Final Four, and I do expect them to win probably just a race soon, if they want to make it and all that. I mean, I'm looking at their results, 11 top 5s, 21 top 10s, and an average finish of 9.4. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, considering the fact that Sadler won, I think, 3 races last year, and he's only like 13 points behind the leader, and he's a couple points to the good. So, I mean, like I said, I'm looking at the points right now, and I don't see any changes between 10th and 12th at the moment. But then right when we get to the round of 12, then that's going to be the deciding factor of – after the round of 12, that's going to be the deciding factor of, okay, who are going to be the 4 drivers that are going to compete for this championship at Homestead? And I'm looking at it, it's going to be pretty much the junior motorsports guys, and then you're just going to have pretty much one from either Stewart Haas or Ganassi or Childress or Gibbs or anybody. So it's going to be a deciding factor, after Phoenix, to see who we're going to see compete for this championship.
Absolutely. And now that we've gone through that, unfortunately, the weekend was ruined by the Cup guys, most importantly, Kyle Busch. And hold that thought. I'm live. Yeah, I can try. Hey, say hello to the people. Okay, never mind. Hi. As we were talking about,
yep,
the Cup race was ruined completely by Kyle Busch. There was a lot of craziness going on in that race at Dover. From Harvick's penalty with not a penalty, but came out with a loose wheel, had to go in. He was running top 5, ended up falling to the back. Some of the bigger names had problems. You can't deny Kyle Busch. Right place, right time, snuck through. He's got all the talent in the world. But for the love of God, I'm tired of talking about Kyle Busch.
I mean, you look at it, I mean, we're already seeing a preview of who's going to compete in the Final Four. And if you look at it, it's basically going to come down between either Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, and Kyle Larson, and pretty much all of them finished in the top 5 this past Sunday. And I look at the 18 right now, and they're going to be a one to watch, once we get to this next round coming up at Talladega. But actually, one driver I really want to want to look upon is definitely the 24 Chase Elliott. He had the best car on Sunday, and he was only about 2 laps away from winning. And one of the lap cars, he couldn't get by, and then Kyle Busch ended up jumping on the high side, and then Elliott ended up finishing second. And like you've seen him in his interviews, like he's just so down on himself, whenever he loses a race. But I'll give you in perspective. There's a lot of great drivers that have lost big races. You talk about the Daytona 500, you talk about the Brickyard 400, you talk about the race at Homestead. I'll bet you there's a lot of drivers that have been upset, after losing a big race. And, Chase Elliott's not the only one that has lost a race before. But like I said, this kid is definitely going to win a race soon. I don't know when, but I really think this kid can get a win before the season's out. And I'm looking at the next round, and one race that I think that Elliott could probably have a chance on winning is definitely Talladega. So if you go back in the spring, he had a really good car, was running in the top 5. He got caught up in that big accident, near the end of the race and so forth. But yeah, I was rooting for Chase Elliott, to win on the Sunday, and it was just a shame to see him lose. But, all I could just say is I'm glad that he made the next round, and I'm hoping that, he can get to the round of 8.
Oh, absolutely. I was cheering my heart out for Chase Elliott this weekend. One, because he deserves to get a win.
Yeah.
And a lot of drivers believe the same thing, and a lot of fans believe the same thing. But 2, come on, man. Come on, man. Kyle Busch, again, I'm not going to make this the hater hour, but do we want to see new people in victory lane? I look at some of the names on this list. Ryan Blaney. The 4 that dropped out were Ryan Newman, Austin Dillon, Casey Kane, Kurt Busch.
Yeah.
All of them winners this year. But then I look up, McMurray hasn't won this year. I don't think Kenseth took a checkered flag this year. Chase Elliott, no. Ryan Blaney did. Stenhouse took 2.
Yep.
Hamlin, we were there for. Harvick took 1, and then up the list, everybody won a race. How would it be to have seen, I don't know, just throwing a name off the top of my head, Chris Buescher or Matt DiBenedetto come away with a victory and go, oh, wow, something fresh, something new, something exciting.
Even though Buescher won last year at Pocono, keep this in mind. Last year, he basically won that race basically when, it was all fog on the racetrack and so forth. And, there has been races where, the crew chiefs will pretty much gamble and they'll tell their drivers saying okay, rain's coming, at this minute or so. So we want to be out there before it starts raining. And there has been some races where that's happened. And of course, with Buescher, who won last year, made the playoffs and pretty much fell out of the first round pretty quick or so forth. And then of course Matt DiBenedetto, he's only finished in the top 10 maybe a few times in his career. The Brickyard, he basically won. He basically finished in the top 10 when it was pretty much a crash fest the last 14 laps or so forth. And, and then not out of perspective, he did get that top 5 finish at Bristol last year as well. But I'm actually looking on the results, and one driver that kind of surprised me was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And if you look at it, he made the round of 12 by 2 points. And yep. I actually looked at his results the last 3 races. Keep this in mind. His 1.5 mile track program, it's not really as good for the 17 team. They've only finished in the top 10, maybe one time. But if you look at it, they've been pretty much outside the top 10 a couple times, on the 1.5 miles. And I said to myself, okay, now we're going to the round of 12. And I would say that if the only way that Stenhouse can advance to the round of 8 as you go to Talladega. And remember what happened in the spring, Stenhouse was on the pole, was able to win. And then, of course, you go to Daytona, he ends up winning there. So I thought, okay, so if we go to the round of 12, if Stenhouse wants to make the next round, he has to win Talladega. If he doesn't win Talladega in 2 weeks, I don't see him going to the round of 8.
I think if he does well and he can continue the streak that he does on the super speedways with top fives and or a win. Of course, the win and you're in. But I think the Stenhouse program at Roush Fenway is good enough that they could sneak their way in, because let's be honest, if you look at his success or lack of it anywhere else, Stenhouse is not someone you look at Dover at a mile track and go, oh yeah, he's going to be a force. Let's be honest, he was surprising, but he finished 19th. He finished behind Mr. Stenhouse, which is Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
Finished behind Kevin Harvick, who lost 2 laps at one point because of the loose wheel.
Yeah.
Behind Austin Dillon, who crashed, and behind a bunch of other guys who, in that second 10, had bad luck all day long.
Yeah. And then I'm looking at Stenhouse's average finish. I mean, he's only finished 17.3, so it's decent. But, you know, if you look at his results, 4 top 5, 7 top 10s, you know, he just has to, like, he's got to start running better, like, within this next round.
I agree with that completely. And while we are here after the race at Dover, we're going to look at the top 12. Obviously led off by Martin Truex Jr. in first. He is the leader. Kyle Busch is second, 18 points back. Kyle Larson third, 25 points back. Brad Keselowski fourth, 39 points back. Jimmy Johnson fifth, 42 points back. 44 points back in sixth is Kevin Harvick. Denny Hamlin's in seventh, 46 points back. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is in eighth, 49 points back. Ryan Blaney ninth, 51 points back. Chase Elliott 10th, 53 points back. Matt Kenseth 11th, 54 points back. And Jamie McMurray rounds out your round of 12, 56 points back. Now, we've talked about them. Let's take a quick look at the bottom 4. I was a bit surprised, but not surprised at some of these names. I actually thought Ryan Newman or Kurt Busch would advance to the round of 12. Austin Dillon, didn't think so. Still think he's a flash in the pan. Still think he's living on granddad's reputation. Casey Kane, take him or leave him. But Ryan Newman and Kurt Busch not making the round of 12 was surprising to me.
I would say Kurt Busch not making the next round, you know, that kind of surprised me too. I mean, give this in perspective, you know, ever since he won the Daytona 500 back in February, that team just pretty much fell off the map between, you know, February to now. And I looked at it and I said, okay, you know, they've won the Daytona 500. What happened? You know, it was either, you know, they've had like BS finishes. They've either had like an engine failure or they got caught up in a crash or so. And I guess the guy said that, you know, whenever like guys win the Daytona 500, then they have like a string of bad luck, you know, within like the next couple of races or so. And then I'm looking at the bottom 4 that were out. I mean, Casey Kane, I wasn't surprised that, you know, he was out because, you know, he basically made the playoffs based on the win in Indianapolis. And then, of course, Austin Dillon, like, you know, I really wanted to see him move on, but, you know, he didn't have a really good finish. And then Ryan Newman, you know, he was pretty much like a dark horse, you know, whenever it comes to the playoffs, but he was basically out too. So, I mean, I would say, you know, now that we're in the start of the round of 12, it's going to get very interesting because, you know, you're going to see some guys that, you know, that could fall out of this next round, some big names, you just never know. And then once we get to the round of 8, then that's when we're all going to decide saying, okay, who are going to be the 4 that are going to compete for this championship? And I'm looking at the points right now, and I still think it's going to be Truex, Busch, and Larson at the point. And then, you know, for my 4, you know, it could be either Keselowski or Johnson or anyone else in between. But, you know, I would just say that, you know, Truex, Busch, and Larson are the only 3 to 1 are the ones to watch right now.
Well, let's take – you're talking about perspective. The difference between Jimmy Johnson in 5th and Jamie McMurray in 12th right now is 14 points. So, again, one bad day throws this whole thing into chaos.
Yeah.
Then if you go up, and let's use Harvick as our jump-off point. Harvick in 6th. You know what? Let's even go to Stenhouse in 8th. The difference between Stenhouse in 8th and Kyle Larson in 3rd is 24 points. Again, one bad day throws the whole thing into chaos. If I were to pick a 4 now, and I think I said this earlier, it was Truex, Larson, Busch, and Harvick.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here saying that this is a year where Jimmy Johnson is experiencing a downslide. I'm not saying his career is winding down. I'm saying this is one of those years where, like Earnhardt had or where Gordon had, where you're so successful for so long, eventually you're going to have to experience some bad luck.
Yeah.
This would also be his second run of bad luck, where you had the years where it was like Keselowski, Harvick, etc., Kyle Busch winning, and then he comes back up, claims that 7th championship, which was last year, comes out on a high, and now he's experiencing the slump. And if you're slumping in 5th place in the playoffs, right now you're doing something well. But he's not doing it well enough. Harvick has been consistent. Hamlin has been consistent. I will throw Chase Elliott into that consistent category. So of those 3 that I just mentioned, those are guys that I think are going to surpass Jimmy Johnson, maybe even surpass Keselowski and take that 4th spot. My heart of hearts, being a homer, I'm going to say I'd like to see Harvick do it. If it's not Harvick, Hamlin or Elliott, easily.
I would say so too, and I'm hoping that Elliott, can make some noise in the round of 12.
And the worst part about all of it is, it doesn't matter who the 4th guy is. It doesn't matter who the 3rd guy is. This is still a Truex and Larson world. We're just living in it.
I totally agree.
It really is, and that's not a bad thing because, again, fresh meat, fresh blood. We're looking at something we haven't seen in quite a long time at the top. At the top level of NASCAR racing is 2 of the younger guys, or Truex is a little older, but he's still looked at as a young guy. 2 of the younger guys battling it out. It's like watching Jeff Gordon and Dale Jarrett back in the day.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I love it. I think it's great. And I can't say enough. So let's get into the preview portion of this program. We'll go to the Xfinity Series, the Drive for the Cure 300, presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. My God, is that a mouthful?
Yeah.
At Charlotte Motor Speedway. I was there 2 years ago for the and unfortunately the Sunday race for the Cup, the Saturday night race for the Cup got rained out. We watched it Sunday during the day. Lost a little bit of its luster, but still a great time. If you've never been to Charlotte, go. NASCAR Hall of Fame is amazing. I loved it. The missus loved it. Everybody loved it. Everybody I know who's gone down to Charlotte, beautiful city, beautiful area, beautiful track, get there. And use Tickets Cheap on LoCanJabroniShow.com. Thank you.
And don't forget the team shops that are down in Charlotte as well.
Oh, we didn't get to any, but we wish we could. We had such a busy weekend. So let's look at the Xfinity Series. Again, I'm glad to say it's a lot of the usual suspects. Only a few Cup drivers are getting into the deal. I see Austin and Ty Dillon. I see, let's see, who else do we got in here? Suarez is in it. Eric Jones is in it. I'm surprised that Ryan Preece isn't making the trip for JGR in the 20. Blaney's in it. And number 38, Alex Bowman, who is going to take over for Junior next year, is in it. Mm-hmm. Just your usual suspects. 2 TBAs. The 77 is also TBA. So we got some wild cards in here. Obviously, at a 1.5 mile super speedway like Charlotte, where they carry so much into the corners, the straightaways are always fast. That dog leg that brings you to the start-finish line, a dog leg that brings you to 1 and 2. Always slick, always fast, always heart-pounding excitement. Before I ask you for your lock and your sleeper, when you think of Charlotte, when you see that Charlotte's next on the schedule, what is it that first comes to your mind?
So I would probably say, Charlotte has had a lot of great racing through like the last couple of years. I'd say like whenever it comes down to the restarts, the passing, makes it really exciting. And then not only that, like sometimes it'll come down to fuel mileage as well. But when I think about Charlotte, I just think about, the track that Jimmy Johnson has dominated on the last couple of years. I mean, there was a time where he won 3 straight races, in the Coca-Cola 600. And then, of course, he won last year in order to advance and so forth. But, you think about guys that have dominated Charlotte throughout the years. Like, there's guys like Gordon and Earnhardt and Waltrip and Petty and Pearson and Yarborough. The list goes on and on. But I think Charlotte this weekend's going to make it really exciting. So Saturday, we have the elimination race for the round of 12. And then the start of the race, then the start of the round of 12 on Sunday for the Cup guys. So I think this race should be pretty exciting.
Absolutely. to answer the question that I gave to you,
Yep.
is when I think about Charlotte, what I think about. This race really came onto my radar. Anything at Charlotte came onto my radar in 1989. I was but a young jabroni, just really getting my feet wet. I'd been to some races with my grandfather, but never really paid attention like straight away and said, okay, I'm going to follow this beginning to end. Was the old All-Star race, which at that point was called the Winston.
Yep.
Don't tell your kids that. Don't want them start smoking. Don't smoke, children.
No.
No.
Do you remember who won that race?
Oh, absolutely. Rusty Wallace when he turned Darrell Waltrip. And I'm going to share that video on the C&J Speedway report page because that's when Charlotte became a bucket list race of mine, was the pass. And they were battling hard, and one had to turn. And what did Rusty say in his Hall of Fame speech? He spun and I won.
Yep.
Battling hard, and that's what racing is all about. That put Charlotte on the radar for me, and always wanted to go there. I finally went, saw some fantastic racing, looking forward to going again someday. But when I think of Charlotte, I think of last lap excitement. A couple years ago, I want to say it was Memorial Day 2011, maybe 2012, when Harvick inched his way to victory.
Yep.
In the Budweiser 29 back then. Again, always exciting racing. You never get someone too far ahead with even 2015 when Angela and I went down. Logano wins, but Harvick was right there. 2 more laps, Harvick takes that race. But life is life, and things go the way they do, and Logano gets a trophy out of it. Congratulations to him. Charlotte's always exciting and always fun. I'm actually right on my phone now looking at that piece of video. I'm saving it with our C&J faithful. Hopefully you guys are sharing this page with people. If you like the show, you like what you see, please share it with your friends. We're going to start taking questions in a few weeks when the season is over. We have to get through the winter somehow. Can't just talk about the Jimmy Johnson. We can't just talk about the Jimmy Johnson poster on Corey's wall back there. That's got to go. We got to get you some new gimmicks.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the Xfinity Series in Charlotte. Now I'm going to ask you, who is your lock and who is your sleeper?
So I was looking on my list, and there's some really good, interesting guys for this race on Saturday. And honestly, all I can just say is I'm glad that Kyle Busch is not in the field, so I'm happy about that. So I actually have 2 this week. My first one is definitely going to be Eric Jones because, anytime, you have the Gibbs guys in Xfinity, I don't care what driver it is, either Suarez, Busch, or Jones. Those are going to be the guys that are going to be the ones to watch for. So I think Jones is going to be one to watch. My second one is definitely going to be Alex Bowman. Now, I was actually surprised that I saw his name on the entry list and driving the 42 car for Chip Ganassi. So I thought to myself, okay, so this kid's going full-time in Cup next year. And he's only doing like a 1-race deal as of right now for Chip Ganassi. And I said to myself, okay, Larson's won in the 42 this year. Tyler Reddick just won last weekend in the 42. So I'm thinking, okay, why not Alex Bowman? And, and I've actually saw him last year when he was driving the 88 for Dale Jr. He ran a lot better than what Jr. and Jeff Gordon did last year. So I would have to say those are going to be my 2 to watch on Saturday.
Okay. Once again, I only picked in the Xfinity Series 1 lock and 1 sleeper. Wrote them down. I have to map these out because if I don't, I'll forget. Much like you, I think Ryan Blaney is my lock. I think that the momentum from this past weekend is going to carry him over. He's going to have another great run, even though he's not eligible for the Xfinity Championship. He's going to put his on it now because, again, Ryan Blaney is not championship on the highest level. When I see the Keselowskis, the Harvicks, the Bushes, we've had this discussion. I don't want to bore you guys who actually tune into the show. Those guys should not be able to go down. However, Ryan Blaney, get all the track time you can, man. Do the Ken Schrader bit.
Yeah.
Do what you have to do to get that track time to learn so you can win that Monster Energy Monster Cup. On this show, it's the Monster Cup because I can't go through the whole rigmarole of the name. My sleeper is actually a championship driver, but he hasn't exactly been strong in the last few weeks. and I'll turn it around now. My picks are Ryan Blaney and Matt Tifft in the sleeper. It seems odd, I'm sure, that someone's going to say, well, Matt Tifft is a championship level driver. How can you pick him as your sleeper? Because he's not exactly lighting the world on fire. And if he were to win this weekend, it propels him. You win and you're in. Boom. He's now a serious threat. So I'll go with Matt Tifft as the sleeper, Ryan Blaney as the Stone Cold lock.
Yep.
So now we go forward. Once again, the Cup Series in Charlotte. I got to get the name of it because it's probably 8,000 pages long, much like it was for our friends at, it's not, Bank of America 500.
Yeah.
Quick and easy. No surprises in the list. Everybody's, except for the 51 is a TBA, so we don't know who's going to be driving the 51 this weekend. But we know who's driving every other car. The October race in Charlotte is always a race that has a little bit of drama, a whole lot of bumping and banging, and I'd say it's a 50-50 chance you're going to get a surprise winner.
Yeah.
What do you see, before you make your picks, what do you see going into Charlotte for the Bank of America 500 that's going to be exciting for you?
So for the start of the round of 12 on Sunday, it's going to make it very interesting. Charlotte's just one of those tracks where, of course, we're going to see the 78 and the 42 dominate on the mile and a halves. And keep this in mind, we got 2 mile and a halves in this round, and then, of course, the super speedway. But I'd probably say Charlotte, I'd say like maybe restarts is going to be a one to watch, and then passing for the lead will be one thing too. And then I'm hoping they can add that PhD, whatever it is, that little that sealer that they put on on the racetracks. I forget what that's called, but they've done it at like so many tracks this year, like New Hampshire and Bristol and so forth. So then that ought to way like they can make that top groove a lot more exciting, because I think they've done it this year back in May, if I'm not mistaken. But if they can add that sealer for the race this weekend, I think it'll make it very interesting. Not only like cars going on the bottom, but see if drivers can make a move like on the top side, and then that ought to way like they can get a good advantage. So I think Charlotte will be really exciting on Sunday. Oh,
absolutely. And it's usually a lot of times at Charlotte is when you see a lot of first-time winners. I can think back to names escape me now, but there's always a first-time winner that comes away with Charlotte as their first big trophy to put in their trophy room. I would love to see a first-time winner this weekend. Unfortunately, my picks will go against that because I really don't see anybody stepping up or rising up to the occasion and winning this Sunday's Charlotte race. Austin Dillon got his first victory in the Cup Series this past spring at Charlotte. But again, like you mentioned earlier, it was a crash-filled race, right place, right time. He just happened to get out front at the right time.
Yep.
So going forward now, let's hear your Stone Cold lock and your sleeper pick for this weekend at Charlotte.
So this is only going to be one lock and one sleeper this week. So
oh my God, stop! Are you really going with the rules right now?
Well, this is pretty much. So I'm looking at the entry list, and I was thinking about this the last few days, and now that we're on the mile and a halves, it always comes down between the 42 and the 78. And I would say my lock for this weekend, if I would have had to pick one, I definitely would have to say the 78, because, they've just been so dominant when it comes to the mile and a half racetracks. And if you think about it, the last time we were on a mile and a half was at Chicago a few weeks ago, and that's when Truex ended up winning. And then you go back to the race in May, Truex had one of the cars to beat in the 600, but he was one of those guys that got taken out of contention because of fuel mileage. And there were a few guys that, that had to pit for fuel late in the race, which that helped Austin Dillon winning. So he's going to be my lock this week. And then my sleeper is definitely going to have to be Chase Elliott. I mean, he already advanced to the next round, which is great, but I really want to see more out of this team because, if they want to contend for wins and if they want to win races and if they want to get to that Final Four, I would have to say that this Sunday, this team really needs to start performing. And you look at this race this weekend, everybody's going to want to win at Charlotte because even though Talladega's the second to last race in the elimination round, this could get pretty interesting. And I really think, any of these guys are going to want to win like the next 2 races or maybe 3 races coming up, but those are going to be my picks this weekend.
Okay. I'm going to take the Corey route. I'm breaking the rules this week. I took 2 stone cold locks. And the reason I did was for the first one, I had to flip a coin.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to pick Martin Truex without picking Larson. I wasn't going to pick Larson without picking Truex. I flipped a coin. My first lock is Martin Truex. I looked at the mile and a half this year, did a little research going into this, a little more than usual, and I wanted a second lock because on the mile and a half, again, you have Truex, you have Larson, but the guy that creeps in the most and has a lot of top 5s on these track, yes, I'm going homer on this one, Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
And my sleeper, because he just got bounced out of the field of 16 as it moved to the field of 12, needs a win. He's losing his ride, going to a new we just talked about the underfunded teams recently. So that's why my sleeper this week is Casey Kane in the 5.
Yeah.
Those are my picks this week. Truex and Harvick in the lock position, Casey Kane in the sleeper, and that, again, Casey Kane needs to make a statement going out because if they can put good equipment under him in this underfunded team, I don't want to call them lower. All those teams are good enough to compete every week. There's the top tier, the middle tier, the lower tier, but they're all great. Let's not mince words here. These guys go out there and battle it out every single week. Sometimes they shine, sometimes they stink. That's the life you lead when you start up a team and you don't have the momentum of a Stewart-Haas or a Gibbs or a Roush Fenway or Hendrick. You have to play with what you've got. You got to play the cards you're dealt. If Kane can win another race this year, if Kane can make that statement and say, I'm still competitive, Hendrick is making a mistake, that's going to carry on to next year. And that team, was it Levine?
Levine Family Racing. Yep.
Levine Family. Thank you for correcting me. If Levine Family Racing sees we have a guy coming in who made the round of 16, who has 2 wins under his belt, we really have to step it up and give this guy equipment underneath him that can take him and take us to that round of 16 next year. Yeah. Look for Casey Kane to make a statement this Sunday at or Saturday night. Sorry. My mistake. Now I'm going to have to apologize to you ahead of time, Corey. Friday night, I will not be in front of the television. I'm going to see some really great bands, one that includes a friend of mine. If anybody's in the Mohegan Sun area, go see Slaughter and Vixen. Slaughter was a former guest, Mark Slaughter, on the Loken Jabroni show. Yep. Vixen lost their guitarist to cancer a few years ago and hired my friend Brittany as a guitarist. So I'm going out and I'm going to rock my ass off. To some 80s hair metal. So you're going to be on the hook for all of the Xfinity action next weekend.
So I think I was actually looking on the schedule. They said the Xfinity race is on Saturday and then the Cup race is on Sunday afternoon.
Have they switched that? Let's go to the tail of the tape here. You might be right. If that's the case, they're throwing it off. Nope, I've got the Cup race. Oh, you're right. Sunday at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a night race usually, and Saturday 3 p.m. for the Xfinity Series. I might be able to see both those races
because I think the reason why they wanted to put Charlotte back in the afternoon races because I guess the last 2 races on Saturday nights got rained out, so I guess NASCAR decided, you know what, why don't we put it back on Sunday afternoon, and then that ought to way we won't have to interfere with rain or anything.
What is NASCAR becoming the weatherman? Al Roker is now working for NASCAR. What the hell is going on here? Plus, if we look at the schedule, the 8th is the Bank of America, 15th. No, they're all Sunday races.
Yeah.
We don't have another night race until ever. All afternoon races in the Cup Series going forward, which kind of sucks. The night races are always fun in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So to take that away, again, we can go on and on about the way NASCAR handles the scheduling or the shifting of races. And I'm sure next year we'll talk a lot about New Hampshire not having that September race anymore.
Right.
But I really think, Charlotte under the lights, man, there's nothing better. And we did get to see a lot of racing under the lights in 2015 when we went, just not the Cup guys.
Right.
So it was a loss for Angela. She had never been to a night race. But for me, it was like, oh, it's the first night race I've ever missed due to a rain out. I'll see another one before I die. That could be
Right.
next week. We don't know. It could be the Corey and Eddie Speedway review for all I know. Eddie behind the scenes doing his job
Yeah.
and doing it wonderfully. As we close out, do you have anything you want to pimp, plug, or otherwise talk about?
So on the bottom, for those of you guys who don't know, I have my own website thanks to Wix.com. I actually created this back in the winter time. This was like back in like January. So if anybody wants to check out my website, go to NASCARindy.org. I post up blogs from this past races. I also post up news. I also post up videos from NASCAR Race Hub's Radioactive or Winners Weekend, and then also NASCAR America Scan All 43, and other videos and so forth. And then my Facebook, go to NASCAR IndyCar Central, look us up, join us, click like, and I'll also post up. So next week's show, I'll post up my Twitter. Actually, I have my Twitter on the right side of the screen, but I also post up my Instagram account as well. But actually, one more thing before we go. What was your take on the little confrontation between Ryan Newman and Jeff Gordon after the race on Sunday?
It's funny you asked that question because I've watched that clip over and over again, and I've always had one opinion of Ryan Newman, which was races hard, very humble. I've had the opportunity to meet Ryan Newman. He's just a real nice guy. For Ryan Newman to pitch a fit over a four-time champion, a certain Hall of Famer, a pretty decent analyst from what I've watched on Fox, and just someone who, when you talk of the greats of NASCAR, you're going to hear names like Petty, Earnhardt, Wallace, Johnson, Gordon. You're going to hear a few others. I'm not sure Ryan Newman is a name that I'm going to put on that list. For him to even question, and I know they ran together for a lot of years, they're friendly, whatever. I think Ryan Newman came off as a big baby this weekend.
My reaction was, of course, it all started off with Jeff Gordon saying like, "Oh, thanks for the help," and I didn't even know what that meant. Either like, "Oh, Chase Elliott made it into the next round," because from what I saw, I guess Chase Elliott was trying to battle one of the lap cars, and I guess Newman was trying to fight to stay on the lead lap or so forth. But then when I looked at that confrontation that they had, I mean, that kind of questioned me, saying like, I don't know what this was all about, and then I guess Gordon pretty much apologized like for what had happened, but I don't know. I mean, it was but I think in my perspective, like, if you're going to talk to a driver like who hasn't had a really good run, and if you don't have like anything good to say, like, like don't try and like say anything at all, because there's some drivers that that lose a race that don't take it pretty seriously.
It's not often I give Jeff Gordon a pass, but in this case I'm going to give him a pass. I'm sure Jeff Gordon thought that he raced side by side with Newman for 15, 16 years. They had a pretty decent relationship. I'm not sure they were tight to where they went fishing with each other, but I'm sure they had a pretty good relationship to where you can make a joke. After the race is not the time. Maybe a couple hours later, you're sitting in the infield, the trucks are pulling out, your Def Leppard Express is still there, all the Def Leppard Expresses before the drivers and their teams roll out. Then you say something.
Yeah.
Not right after the race. But I am going to give Jeff Gordon a pass. I'm quite sure, from what I hear and what I know, I've never met Jeff Gordon. I know a lot of people who have. Jeff Gordon didn't mean that as a dick move.
No.
But in saying it, yes, he's a co-owner of the 24. He's also a co-owner of the 48. Yeah, you helped me along. You finished right behind or not far behind, and you pushed my guy into the playoffs. Thanks for the help.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a jerk move at all. I think it was just, one racer talking to another racer who he thought, I can make this sort of joke and it'll fly by. Unfortunately, it didn't. And in viewing it, Ryan Newman comes off as a big baby, whereas I'm quite sure that in any other circumstance, later in the night, the next day, maybe on Twitter. It doesn't go that far.
And if Ryan's watching this on YouTube, I think that's what Jeff Gordon was referring to.
Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of Ryan Newman. Never so much of Jeff Gordon, but again, I respect the hell out of that guy. And,
yeah,
you know, the racing's not the same without Jeff Gordon behind the wheel at 24. I'm still getting used to seeing a 24 out there without Jeff Gordon behind the wheel.
Right.
I'm going to pimp a couple things out real quick. Once again, the Loki and Jabroni show will not be live streaming on Mondays anymore. It will be on Tuesday nights going forward. Same bat time, same bat channel, 6:30 p.m. We're just giving it to you a day late. Logistical problems have forced us to move the live stream. If you are in the Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island general vicinity and you have nothing to do this Sunday night, come out to Hooters in Wethersfield for the WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view hosted by Loki and Jabroni with special guest Viking Entertainment doing karaoke with WWE Hall of Fame manager, Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. We're all going to be there. We're going to have a great time. Come on down. Drink some beer, eat some wings, sing along with Jimmy Hart. It's a great time had by all. And if you don't like wrestling, come down and see us. We're always there for you, man.
All right.
And that means you should get off your dead and lazy ass and come down too.
Well, I'll see what my schedule's like, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, Corey, thanks again. Always a good time. We will see you next Wednesday night. And all of you, we will see you next Wednesday night for the fastest hour on YouTube. It is the C&J Speedway Report. Enjoy your racing, guys.
Good night.